Welcome to the program, everyone. It looks like there's a little bit of a dust-up, shall we call it, over at MSNBC. Now, all of a sudden, the libs are all fighting amongst themselves. I guess that's how we want it, right? Wait till you see all of this. Check it out.
Well, just given what one sees on camera, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. So that's a lot.
That didn't go over well. Not with Mika and Joe, anyway. And then that caused a whole thing with that particular guest who went totally rogue, getting really, really mad at them. Twitter fights, articles, the whole thing, followed by what, a 9-minute spectacle on this morning's show as they try to address the infighting in the liberal camp. Meanwhile, also on MSNBC, I'll tell you what, James Carville doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Shannon does not drive this. One person is driving this, I'll promise you, and it's Tucker Carlson. Okay, Tucker's an old friend of mine. And there's nothing that I see.
Still friends.
Yeah. Okay, not entirely true. He's trying to talk about the cabinet appointments. Tucker has influence, believe me, but he's not the only one driving it. There's one person in charge, one Donald J. Trump. We're going to poke a few holes in that little Carville argument. Plus, Bezos wants to be one of the cool kids. Now, listen to this.
And the reason I ask is because I'm very optimistic that President Trump is serious about this regulatory agenda, right. And I think he has a good chance of succeeding.
Oh my gosh, imagine saying that at a New York Times conference. We're going to run the whole clip for you. And it's not perfect. Believe me, it's not perfect. I think Bezos is a bit delusional, shall we say. But welcome to the program. It's so good to have you here. I hope you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. We begin today, ladies and gentlemen. We begin on the news out of MSNBC. This is like a liberal meltdown. Now they're all fighting with each other. They don't know what to do in this new environment. You see, Donald Trump's around for a second term now. It was a total mandate by the country. And this is not the same Donald Trump as before. No. He's way more powerful. And that causes a lot of people to be running scared in different ways, shapes, and forms. Anyway, this particular meltdown happened because there was a reporter from The Atlantic that came onto the set and started to knock one of the appointees that Donald Trump has put forward for head of the Defense Department, one Pete Hegseth. He started to knock him, and really aggressively so, and then started to knock all of Fox News. All right, so there were allegations completely off the record, by the way. I should say that all the allegations about Pete Hegseth and any alleged drinking issues he had, totally off the record. But MSNBC had this reporting, and this one David Trump from The Atlantic decided to get kind of wild on it and say this.
Well, just given what one sees on camera, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. So that's alarming. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush nominated John Tower, senator from Texas, for Secretary of Defense. Now, Tower was a very considerable person, a real defense intellectual, someone who deeply understood defense, unlike the current nominee.
So he goes on to talk about, how you really need somebody like this for defense, not Pete Hegseth. But do you see how he slid that little zinger in there to everyone at Fox News? That was kind of a lousy thing to say, right? And he said it completely seriously. I mean, the guy's not even cracking a smile. What a pleasant face to wake up to in the morning, not. Anyway, he got in a little bit of trouble. You see, apparently the hosts were kind of concerned that was sort of libeling, if you would, all of Fox News. By the way, their own MSNBC reporter had gotten all of these people, 7 of them, to go off the record with her from Fox News. So then to turn around and call them all drunks, maybe not the nicest thing to say, given that they had just divulged all this information, right? So none of it sits well. Plus, it's just more of the same, more of the ugliness, more of the nastiness. And can we not, please, get away from it for 2 seconds? At least at 6-something in the morning? Anyway, he got reprimanded by the producer. And apparently then Mika and Joe went on television and said, we really shouldn't say that about our fellow journalists over at Fox News. And they wanted to kind of lower the temperature just a tad. Well, this one David from The Atlantic, he didn't like it very much. He took to Twitter and he started going rogue. I mean, totally rogue and making this whole thing, how drunk is too drunk, for Fox News. So he's out for blood now against Talking about the hand that feeds you against the very people that are putting him on television. Here he is, writing in The Atlantic. It is an ominous sign that Morning Joe felt it had to apologize for something I said. So he thinks that, they had to apologize. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the craziness within the libs now. Okay, they all hate Trump. Like, that's a given. But some of them, perhaps like Mika and Joe, who read the handwriting on the wall and they know their company's getting spun off because Comcast doesn't want to have anything to do with the likes of Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, or either of them for that matter. They are survivors. And they're saying, okay, well, wait a second. Like, maybe we should take a step back because clearly we did something wrong. Clearly we did something super duper wrong because guess what? No one agrees with anything we're saying. And so this guy's doubling down. And they are trying to take the high road. They're like, okay, this is their producer, okay? Their producer sends out a tweet, and they're trying to get him back on the show the next morning to help explain some of this and to kind of have a civil conversation. And it's not happening. This guy writes, Joe and Mika have consistently expressed their strong reservations and perspectives regarding Pete Hegseth's nomination from the very beginning, and that stance remains unchanged. We would have responded in the same manner regardless of when these comments were made or what organization was referenced. And David Frum, basically, you know what, you're part of the family, won't you come back on and we'll talk about it, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that's where we stand. There was this dust up. One of the Morning Joe regulars goes totally rogue. He says some nasty things about some Fox people. And suddenly, Mika and Joe have developed a conscience. What do you know? Because they realize, their ratings are in the toilet. They're down 51% from the election. Nobody watches them. Nobody thinks they have any influence whatsoever. So they have to try and come up with another MO, right? Like another line. So here they are trying to deal with this rogue contributor in this morning presentation today. Watch.
Point of personal privilege.
So yesterday we had a good friend of ours on the show, and a guy who's been a guest for some time, a guy who he knows. He's been one of my heroes for years now, a great writer, David Frum. He writes for The Atlantic. David came on the show yesterday, and we're having a good conversation. But we were talking about the Fox News employees that actually talked to Courtney Kuby and other people at NBC News and said that he'd been drinking too much there. And it was devastating.
Concerned.
It was a devastating report. And David flippantly said, was joking, he said, if you're too drunk for Fox News, you're very, very drunk indeed. We went on with this segment. And just to let you know how things work here, I was asking Mika, should we address that or not? Because if somebody had said that about any news outlet, we'd usually say something about it to reference the entire network. So at the end, and I want to get the words right, Mika said this: the comment was a little too flippant for the moment we're in. We disagree with Fox News, but there's some good people over there. And we, of course,
a lot of worried about Pete Hegseth.
We're also, of course, talking about those people so worried at Fox News about America's national security that they were talking to an NBC News reporter
coming forward
saying Hegseth was not qualified. So Mika said after, the comment was a little too flippant for the moment we're in. We disagree with Fox News, but there's some good people over there, including, of course, those talking to NBC News about their concerns. This got turned into a column and a headline that said that, well, let's see, what was the headline? The sound of fear.
Oh boy.
No, that wasn't the sound of fear. That was the sound of civility. And saying that Mika had apologized. Mika didn't apologize.
No,
She simply said, it was too flippant. Now, I would recommend that if we're at a stage where a comment like this causes a meltdown, and I saw George Conway, another guy we have on the show, and
we love
George, saying, read this article, it's going to make you very sad, but you must read it all. Because of the fearful times we're in. Well, there's some problem with the times that we're in.
You can't be fearful.
Okay.
You can't be fearful. Just because some people have said that we're fearful, let me tell you something. You can talk to anybody that's worked in the front office of NBC and MSNBC over the past 22 years. I'll tell you, I'm not fearful. You can talk to anybody who served with me in Congress. They will tell you, not fearful of leadership. Now, not fearful. And I will say, I had a wonderful conversation with David Frum. He was supposed to be on today. He said he was going to be on today. We are actually going to tweet back and forth,
back on.
talking about having him back on today, just to talk through this, to say, again, I don't know, maybe it was the right call. Maybe it wasn't the right call. I didn't know exactly how to do it after he said.
But he didn't want to come back on. He didn't want to come back on because, you see, there's trouble in paradise and nobody's getting along now. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be an entertaining 4 years, isn't it? I mean, really entertaining 4 years, because they don't know what to do or where to turn. They have to completely remake their party. Think about it. I mean, Donald Trump has completely taken over the entire space that the left used to operate in as, like, you know, traditional Dems. The blue wall is suddenly really challenging to get a hold of now, because the blue wall has turned red. The whole country has turned red because these elitist snobs, they go on Morning Joe and have their stupid point of view about stupid things and try and make you feel like you're nothing. If you don't agree with their point of view, guess what? They lost. They lost. And they're trying to come to terms with it. I'll tell you, they created some monsters in the process.
So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, like, I think you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah. Like I said, some monsters in the process. That was Joy Reid saying, don't go to the holidays with your family if they dared. If they dared to vote for Donald Trump. You need to carry that grudge and hold on to that grudge. Well, I think there's a little bit of a schism, shall we say, within the Democrat Party, because there are the Joy Reids out there that just want to divide, and take their little 1% of the population and walk away with that. And then there are people like Mika and Joe that, like, I'm just telling you guys, they are total survivors. Like, they're like, how do we manage this? The day after the election, I couldn't believe it. I had to listen to Joe Scarborough tell us all he was a Southern white male conservative, and he understood why they lost. Okay. You know, he's like trying to make a run at Tucker's job, I guess. Like he's completely, he was actually in a suit and tie that day too. What do you know? So much for the hoodies. So they're trying to remake themselves in this show, but you see, they got all this baggage surrounding them, like David Frum, like the whole crew that goes on there, all the sycophants that just are there to worship Mika and Joe and hate on Trump. And now they don't know what to do. Suddenly, Mika and Joe took off from Mar-a-Lago. We know what that's about, right? Again, survivors. So they go down to Mar-a-Lago, and apparently the staff at MSNBC is furious. And I'm betting one David Frum is a little bit furious too. Wow. So they're having some tough times, are they not, at MSNBC? Very, very, very tough times. I am asking all of you to keep an eye on the sound. I'm watching your comments in real time because we're trying to make sure that these audio board levels are correct. So keep me posted on stuff. I understand that the volume was kind of low on the Joe and Mika stuff, so we're trying to bring it up for you. So just know that I'm watching what you're saying, and we're trying to tweak it here in real time. Quick note from one of our sponsors before we get to James Carville, who thinks he knows everything and literally knows nothing. Like nothing. I can't believe a guy that worked with Tucker as his co-host. Remember that show Crossfire back when Tucker used to wear a bow tie? Like, he made a wild comment. I mean, he clearly knows nothing about Tucker. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, a shout out to our friends over at American Hartford Gold. this is the team that you need to call if you're interested in investing in gold, which is something that I'm a big believer in. I'm very worried about inflation, even though we get Doge coming in. Even though Elon and Vivek, actually they were on Capitol Hill today. Elon brought his son. It was very cute. He was like walking through the hallways with his son on his shoulders. Even though they're going to try and cut some of the fat, we still have the reality that this is a tremendous amount of debt that we have as a nation. And I don't think it's going to be fixed anytime soon. I do have my concerns, not to mention the concerns of all these countries all over the world, trying to find alternatives to buying, say, U.S. treasuries. So all this has an effect on your dollar. It depreciates the value of your dollars. It's one of the reasons why, plus, the threat of World War III, shall we say, it's one of the reasons why I really do like gold. So if you're interested in buying this, I really do encourage you to call my friends over at American Heart for Gold. You can get up to $15,000 right now in free silver. You can text my name to find out more about that $15,000 offer. Just text Trish to 65532 or call them at 1-844-495-1115. The other thing you can do is just go to Trish Loves Gold on your computer. Trish Loves Gold. We're putting it in the show notes as well. And you can get more about that $15,000 in free silver by just going over there today. But wow, we get a lot to get to. We really do, because Carville is, he's kind of a pompous, what. And occasionally I'm like, all right, he's right. Like he gets sort of where the heart of the country is in a way that, frankly, these elite snobs in New York City and LA and academia simply don't. But then you realize his deficiencies. I mean, he's getting up there too, right? Joe Biden isn't the only one. He's getting up there too. And he said something on MSNBC the other day, which caused me to say, wow, this guy really is like just talking out of his you-know-what, because he started to say, like, Tucker Carlson is completely controlling all of these appointments, blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm not going to doubt that Tucker has influence. I think that Donald Trump actually likes to listen to a lot of different voices and get different opinions, and Tucker is for sure one of them, but he's not running the whole show. Nor is Elon, for that matter, because if Elon was, guess what? Scott Bessent wouldn't have become Treasury Secretary. Elon wanted Howard Lutnick, who went over to Commerce. So I think that at the end of the day, there's one person and one person only in charge of the appointments, and that is one Donald Trump. But that's not stopping Carville from like jumping into this conspiracy theory loop. Take a listen to him here on MSNBC. I watch so you don't have to. You get it?
Drive this. One person is driving this, I'll promise you, and it's Tucker Carlson. Okay, Tucker's an old friend of mine, and there's nothing that I see.
Still friends?
We hadn't talked to each other in a while, but I'm not. We were friends, but I'm not. But everything that I see is the same thing I heard in the green room in 2002. Okay, and J.D. Vance, Don Jr., Kash Patel was Tucker's business partner. I'm just telling you what's out there, okay? And Tucker is 40 times more clever than Steve Bannon. He's 40 times more connected. He's also very connected with Elon Musk and everything else. And he's a very bright man who should not be underrated. But I think he has more influence in this current administration, way more than Bernard Jordan had in the Clinton administration or any other kind of wise men that were around. But Tucker is very, very, very powerful. And the Kash Patel pick proves that beyond any doubt at all.
Okay. So here's what's funny about this. Carville is past his expiration date because he used to co-host a show with Tucker Carlson. So you'd think he'd know him a little bit, right? And he might know his business partner. But apparently he's getting like his Patels mixed up. The Indian guys. You see, there's Neil Patel that Tucker went to college with and started a business with called Daily Caller, great website. And then there is Kash Patel, who didn't go to school with Tucker Carlson, went to UVA, on to Pace University Law School, was very much part of the Department of National Intelligence. He's got tons of qualifications, by the way. I don't think he's going to have a problem, believe it or not, getting confirmed. He has all the qualifications. I mean, they're terrified because he does have all the qualifications, and he is totally over the FBI, if there was any other way to say it. I would, but you know, he is not a fan. He's just not a fan. But what's insane is the idea that Carville, who does theoretically know him, I mean, they were co-hosts together, is going to sit there and spew this nonsense to the point where he can't even tell his patels apart. Like, that's how you know the guy is a goner. Which is too bad, frankly, for the Democrat Party. I mean, maybe other people thought this along the way, which is why he didn't have much influence in this election. I think if he'd had some influence, they might actually be in a better spot than where they are now. I mean, they were never going to win with Biden. They were never going to win with Kamala. The answer is they should have done what I said ages ago. Go back and look at the tape. I mean, I had entire shows titled this. Guys, wake up. Get rid of your candidate. Primary him. It is the only way you have any shot at 2024. Not that I want to do him any favors, believe me, but it's just amazing that they live so inside their heads, so inside that Morning Joe circus thing that they don't actually get outside enough to understand what everyday Americans are up against and how everyday Americans have no use for Joe Biden, think he's too old, which he is, think he's inept, which he is, think he's corrupt, which clearly, what do you think that pardon was about? Corruption, and have no faith in Kamala Harris and consider her, I'm just going to say it, one giant DEI hire. All right? So no one was interested in either of these candidates. It was never going to happen. Poor Carville. And he can't even remember, who's who. So they're kind of doomed. If they're looking to Joe and Mika to revamp the whole thing, I got news for them. They're really, really doomed. I'll tell you who's not doomed. Anyone who has been investing for the future and thinking about all this bonker stuff that's going on and how you actually look at it from an investment standpoint. In other words, those companies that maybe they don't want because they're not DEI friendly enough might actually just print money, and therefore you do actually want them. This is one of the reasons we founded 76 Research, my friend Rob Horden and I. Rob has been on Wall Street for many years, a couple of decades, and is a phenomenal stock picker. So we have really some exceptional research, if I do say so myself. You've seen some of the numbers in terms of what we've been able to do, how we've been able to beat the S&P. And I'm thrilled because we have a new guide out, investinmaga.com. This is totally free. So go there to investinmaga.com if you want to invest in the portfolios themselves. We're not actually taking your money in any way. We are giving you all the information. So we give you the names. We tell you where we're buying them. We tell you if we sell them. 10 to 15 names in each of the portfolios. Take a look at that. Also, a quick shout out actually for one of the sponsors of the Trish Regan Show, and that would be Balance in Nature. Balance in Nature. Listen, it's December, right? This is Diet Crash time, and everybody's struggling. I get it, myself included, to try and stay healthy and not eat too many sweets around this time. So go to balanceinnature.com. This is what I use, and the vitamins I take. I use the fruits and veggies, the gummies. They're good. They're gluten-free. For those of you that care about that. And you can use code word Trish, TRISH, or call them at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751. Well, it seems all the tech people want in on the action now. Like everybody's looking enviously at Elon Musk. Oh my gosh, Elon Musk is going to have so much power because he has so much access to power, they're saying to themselves. And then you got the whole PayPal mafia, right? Peter Thiel, you got David Sachs out there. Bill Ackman is in on the action. That's for real. I mean, Bill was very famous billionaire hedge fund guy, and he was really distraught over what he was seeing on college campuses go on in terms of the anti-Semitism, et cetera. And so Bill Ackman joined the club. Everyone's like in on this. And so even Mark Zuckerberg found that he might actually have to rethink some of his positions. Don't forget, he was just down in Mar-a-Lago having dinner with Donald Trump. We reported on that yesterday. Well, guess who else is getting in on the action? That would be one Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is suddenly optimistic. Really optimistic about this administration. Listen.
Very optimistic that President Trump is serious about this regulatory agenda, right. And I think he has a good chance of succeeding.
What about the idea that he thinks that the press is the enemy?
Well, I think I'm going to try to talk him out of that idea. I don't think the press is the enemy. And I don't think, he's also...
Oops. Maybe we should have just stopped it where it was. He was doing so well. But, he's got Andrew Ross Sorkin there, who works for CNBC, getting spun off, just like MSNBC, and the New York Times. And New York Times, they really hate Trump. They still hate Trump. That's never going to change. And so they're like, really, really, really? So let's go back and listen to the second part of it. So he started by saying, hey, I'm really optimistic. I think great stuff can happen, especially vis-a-vis all this crazy regulation. Don't forget, Jeff Bezos saw the handwriting on the wall. Jeff Bezos wouldn't allow his opinion editors to make a call in terms of who they believed should win the presidency. And there was the opinion editor that actually resigned over the whole thing, absolutely furious that they couldn't write an op-ed saying, we support Kamala Harris. And he said, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to take that kind of stake. Anyway, let's go back and listen to this little dust up with Andrew Ross Sorkin because, how can you possibly say that Trump might actually be good for things?
What about the idea that he thinks that the press is the enemy?
Well, I think I'm going to try to talk him out of that idea. I don't think the press is the enemy. And I don't think, he's also... You've probably grown in the last 8 years. He has too. This is not the case. The press is not the enemy.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too.
Have you talked?
But let's go persuade him of this. No, let's
have you talked to him about it?
But you and I should go. Let's go talk to him.
If we could try.
I really don't. I think that this is absolutely. I don't think he's going to see it the same way. But maybe I'll be wrong.
Was that always your thought, by the way?
What I've seen so far is that he is calmer than he was the first time and more confident, more settled.
I think, I'm going out on a limb here, I think it's going to be kind of hard to convince Donald Trump at this point that the press is not the enemy. Because you saw what the press did. You saw the 51X spooks signing their name to a letter saying, no, that Hunter Biden laptop, that's nothing but misinformation, disinformation. That's from the Russians. When it turned out, no, that Hunter Biden laptop was pretty real. So real that now Hunter Biden had to get pardoned over it. There was that. There was, the virus didn't come from Wuhan. Like, how could it possibly have come from the laboratory where they were actually working on this gain-of-function research? And then it turned out, what do you know? The consensus among the majority of three-letter agencies is, sure enough, yeah, it came from Wuhan. I mean, there was moment after moment after moment. It's really exhausting, exhausting. I mean, there's probably hundreds of these, of examples, and the press is telling you one thing that seems to be coming straight from the narrative of the Biden White House, or formerly the Obama White House. They're in the tank with the left, and they're only perpetuating it. There's no individuality. There is no sort of, let me look at this from my own perspective. Let me just sell an agenda. Well, if you're selling an agenda that may be at odds with the American people, then yeah, I think you're kind of an enemy of the people. I'm not saying everybody is, but a lot of them, for goodness sakes. What do you think Rev Sharpton is? Rev Sharpton over there on MSNBC, who gets a paycheck from the Kamala Harris campaign for $500,000, his organization, just days before he sits down with her on MSNBC to do this big media interview. Yesterday, we reported, go back and look at that story, on Ana Navarro over on The View, who was somehow talking to Biden about his son getting pardoned while simultaneously doing a speaking event at the Biden Institute. Those things are paid. So what is she, like a paid consultant for Biden? Apparently. That would be my guess. How else do you interpret that news? And then you, of course, have Oprah. Oh, my goodness gracious. Oprah's like the queen of the whole thing, getting paid, according to the New York Times, $2.5 million to do that interview with Kamala Harris. They need an audit of that campaign. The media is just so in the tank. And that's the way they want it, you see? Just go over to the Clinton Global Initiative. Hillary Clinton, weeks before the election, this was in late October of 2024, saying, yep, we need the mainstream media to be like in line with anti-Trump stuff. Here she is.
The press needs a consistent the press that's not supporting Trump blatantly, very persistently, the press that's trying to be the press, be objective, be, reporting the facts.
I'm sorry. They were never reporting the facts, okay? When the New York Times is trying to tell me that wages are going up, but refuses to look at real wages adjusted for inflation. Wages were going down. Real wages were going down, but they're trying to spin it by not telling you the whole story. That is not a press that is unbiased. That is an agenda. When you hear Mika Brzezinski going on to The View and saying, this is fascism, we're going to have fascism. When you hear Joe Scarborough saying that he's akin, Donald Trump, to Hitler, what do you think that really is? You want to tell me that that's an unbiased media? I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton, they're just, I guess, waiting for their next paycheck from CGI. Let's listen to the rest of it.
The press needs a consistent narrative about the danger that Trump poses. Because,
such a danger, right? Such a danger. This is what they're going on and on and on about. You want to know what's a danger? I'll tell you what's a danger. When you have 700 and something illegal migrants wandering around New York City, nearly 60,000 of whom are known criminals. That's a danger. You know what else is a danger? When you cannot afford them. When you spend $151 billion, as Doge, thankfully, has just told us, on immigration challenges like housing and food, etc., to welcome all of these people who are here illegally, which is roughly half the amount in inflation-adjusted dollars that you spent on World War I. That's a danger. Money you don't have, thrown out the window to take care of people that you can't take care of. Many of whom are criminals. I mean, these are dangers. You know what else is a danger? Not having the wherewithal, the common sense to understand that if you're going to sanction Russia and you're going to therefore cut off all the natural gas and energy that could be flowing out of that and then say, well, simultaneously, we're not going to drill in the United States of America. That's a danger because guess what? You're going to make it hard on American families by driving up inflation. These are the real dangers. Americans know that, okay? And that is why they gave you the middle finger. Twice, Hillary Clinton. Twice. I mean, there was the time that you ran, and then there was 2024. You did all you could to campaign for Kamala. And they still said, no, thanks. I don't want that. No, thanks. I get it. No, thanks. We're not signing up for that. We're signing up for a new opportunity. I mean, look at how the market's been on a tear in anticipation, by the way, of the Trump win. Why? Because, they were looking more at prediction markets than they were the polls of which were incredibly wrong. And one of the beneficiaries of that, of course, has been Bitcoin. Did you see Bitcoin hit 100K? Just amazing, right? 100K on Bitcoin. And I told you, actually, Rob and I wrote this at 76research.com. We put a note out in September when it was 65,000. We said, hey, you know what? If you have a little extra money that you don't mind losing because it's kind of a gamble, this is volatile, like Wild West stuff, but you might want to think about this because if Trump wins, it's going to be a party, right? And now we have 100K on Bitcoin. It was actually up just like 103 and change overnight. But the reason for that is, because there's this excitement, this amazing excitement. So I wanted to talk to a Bitcoin miner about this. I called my friend Sam Tabar, who is the CEO of a Bitcoin mining company, Bit Digital, to kind of explain it all. And, he said he knew right away, as soon as Donald Trump won, the thing was just going to take off.
It was inevitable as soon as Trump was elected president. What he did basically was unleash the crypto markets, including Bitcoin, including Ethereum, because the previous administration was very hostile to the entire crypto industry. And we had suffered on many great ways. I can get into some certain examples over the past 4 years. And with a very hostile SEC and certain politicians in the Biden administration, we're now seeing the page turn over. The pendulum is being swung the other way with people who are much more friendly towards innovation, technology, capitalism, and we see that with Trump. And when that happened, when he was confirmed to be president-elect, the crypto markets and the technology markets just unleashed, and we see that.
It was so interesting, right? Because you had the polls doing one thing, and then you had betting markets like Poly Market showing you something else entirely. And the betting markets were pretty confident that Donald Trump was going to win, which is fascinating in and of itself, right? The spread, the difference between the two. And I think that was actually lending support to the overall markets. And the markets, I think, also were anticipating that it was going to be a Trump win, which would be a boom to capital markets and, of course, to crypto markets, too. So we've been watching this steady rise up. I remember talking to you back in September, and that was, I want to say Bitcoin was around 64,000 at that point. Now we're looking at upwards of around 100,000. Similar story in terms of Ethereum. Ethereum has just had this wild ride as well. Up and away. We can get to where it's going in a minute, but first, you mentioned something that I'm going to drill down on, because you said it's a different environment now. I mean, what has the environment been like? We know, like, for example, it was bad in China, right? China kicked out all the Bitcoin miners. I know that you guys had some operations there. You relocated them to the States, but have you run into other issues here?
Absolutely. We and my peers in the sector received letters from Senator Warren asking us many questions about our use of energy. And they were very long and intrusive questions. We had to spend a lot of time answering those questions. It was a very thankless task. And also with respect to,
because she was worried that you were a drain on the grid. And I know the counter to that is actually you can turn your machines on and off, and you absorb a lot of the excess energy, right, during times that it needs to be absorbed, so that you stabilize the grid.
We actually stabilize the grid. And also, for example, in our fleet, over 90% of our fleet is carbon free. That's not carbon neutral, which is very different. Carbon free. Carbon neutrality is when you use bad sources of energy and buy certificates to offset damage. So we're carbon free. We're actually using renewables, hydro, geothermal.
But she was in there anyway. She wanted to make sure.
Exactly.
What else happened?
Well, I mean, it was also sometimes difficult to get bank accounts. Even personally, as CEO of Bit Digital, I was onboarding my own personal banking situation, and as soon as they found out I was CEO of a crypto company, they said, "Sorry, we can't onboard." Yeah.
Are you? Whoa! Because Mark Andreessen brought this up the other day with Joe Rogan, and he said that there were like 30 crypto. Actually, no, I think this was the Coinbase CEO who said he knew of 30 people, or maybe it was Elon Musk. Somebody was talking about 30 people that had been debanked. I've talked to friends since that aren't in the crypto sector, but are in the political sphere. They went through similar things. You're telling me that you couldn't get a bank account, at least at the first bank you went to?
I couldn't get, there were two banks that would not allow me to open up a bank account. And I have significant assets. They wouldn't allow it as soon as they found out that I was CEO of a Bitcoin mining company.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That happened. It's real. That's not a conspiracy theory. I personally had that happen to me.
Whoa. So, I mean, that's a whole other thing, right? Because that's sort of big government coming in and saying, we don't like this. We don't like you. We're not going to give you access to basic necessities like a bank account.
Basically, it was a chokehold on the crypto industry. They were trying, it was Operation Choke Point, it's called, where they were trying to choke everybody in the sector out slowly but surely. We had to, like I said, over the past 4 years, it's been very difficult. We really welcome the new administration.
Yeah, I bet. It's a new day. new ball game, new person in charge, surrounded by like a lot of smart people in tech, which is terrific. I mean, I look at this and say, you're either embracing the future, and I know a lot of people, including a lot of viewers that are watching right now, are like, no, I don't like this like crypto thing, and there's a lot of worries. And I would just say, look, we're moving forward here, and you kind of want to be front and center and own this space, to me anyway, as a country, as opposed to allow others. I mean, I have no interest, shall we say, Sam, in becoming Europe. And we all know what Europe has done to crypto companies, and frankly, China too.
Yeah, I mean, if you even also other technology sectors, for example, AI, Europe created a bunch of rules about AI technology before they even had AI companies. Now it's basically impossible to launch an AI company in Europe as a result of an incredible amount of regulation that was caused by bureaucrats in Europe. And Europe is now known as just bureaucracy, not technology. Yeah. And the US was on its way towards that situation, that reality. And thank goodness there's a course correction now with respect to the upcoming Department of Governmental Efficiency, otherwise DOGE, that's being headed by Elon Musk and others. So it's really important. And I think what happened here is really a sea change in terms of the direction that the United States was going. Because if it went towards the way of Europe, the tech sector and all innovations would have been choked out.
My gosh. All right. So Bitcoin, 100K and climbing. I think it's like 103 at last check. You mine it, right? Like you mine it and then you do something really special with it. And we'll get to that in a second. But what's it like mining this? How much do you mine? Like how many computers are running? Give me a sense of what that business is.
Yeah, we have tens of thousands of computers in a fleet that spans across the United States, Iceland, and some parts of Canada. And what we do is these computers are solving very complicated mathematical equations to earn a Bitcoin. And we've earned about 7,000 Bitcoins since we started our Bitcoin mining operation. Mm-hmm. But we do something very different at Bit Digital. We have about 27,000 Ethereums in our on our balance sheet, and we're one of, if not the largest, proxies for ETH in the capital markets. So if people wish to express their belief in Ethereum, they tend to buy our ticker, similar to how people buy MicroStrategy for Bitcoin. People are buying Bit Digital for Ethereum. And we're one of the only players that can actually do that.
So, Michael Saylor was on the program the other day, and he kind of walked us through some of the things that they're doing, which are incredibly innovative. And I know you guys are doing that with Ethereum. Before we get to that, let's back up for a second. What is Ethereum? How is it different than Bitcoin?
So Bitcoin is basically digital gold. It's a store of value. That's all it is. And it's very simple because that's all it is. Ethereum is a little bit more sophisticated in the sense that it's a powerful global system where people are running programs and can move money and create new kinds of online services without the need of a middleman. You could basically program if-then statements to move money without a middleman. That's why it's a big threat to the financial institution. Ethereum moves money and moves value without needing a middleman.
Okay, give me an example. Give me an example. Because you're a former lawyer. You were at Skadden Arps. You've written lots of contracts. You've worked in the financial sector. Now you look at Ethereum. Give me an example of how Ethereum could basically make a lot of things, shall we say, obsolete.
Sure. So you mentioned contracts. So imagine I had a contract with you, and the contract says, as soon as I raise $1 million for a film that I'd like to make, you will match that. You will give me $1 million. So what do I need to make that happen? I have to hire a lawyer. I have to hire an escrow agent. There has to be 2 bank accounts. That's a lot of people and a lot of institutions already just to execute on that contract. What does Ethereum do? Ethereum has something called smart contracts, where you can simply program an if-then statement. So if I raise $1 million for my film, automatically $1 million from your account comes to me automatically. No middleman, no contracts, no bank accounts, no escrow agents. You remove all of those middlemen, all that friction, and that's the power of Ethereum. So
Okay.
Bitcoin, just
Go
a
ahead.
survey, and Ethereum is a programmatic language where you could exchange value with no middlemen.
So I'm just thinking of how that could be applied and how we've even seen it be applied. I'm going to give Polymarket as an example because they were using Ethereum blockchain in order to, you know, like you said, okay, you know, I believe Donald Trump's going to win the presidency and I'm going to put a trade on that. And they were like somehow registering these trades on Ethereum and then using stable coins to settle them out. Could that actually, like, if you really think about it, could that actually be the wave of the future in terms of trading and the stock market? Like, you think about all the things that go into, say, a derivatives product right now, or just simple trading, and maybe you could actually cut a lot of that out if you were to use something like Ethereum blockchain?
Absolutely. Ethereum can basically rewrite the entire financial system and can cut out all the lawyers, all the bankers, all the escrow agents, all the back office to get something very simply done. And that is the power of Ethereum. And so
that's kind of
imagine
scary to the establishment.
it is scary. It's one of the reasons why the establishment was very uncomfortable with this technology. They did not want crypto because they understood, especially Ethereum, they understood that this could replace their jobs. Basically, the financial system thrives on friction. What do I mean by friction? Whenever you move something from A to B, it takes out a little bit from the top. And there are a lot of people, lawyers and bankers and escrow agents and so on, that take a little bit from the top when you're trying to move money from A to B. With Ethereum, all that is cut out with a simple programmatic language. And when you have that, of course, that's going to be a threat to the financial institutions of the world.
Okay, so here's another question. What about the programmers themselves? So sure, okay, use the movie example. I'm going to raise $1 million for the movie and we have some kind of deal in place that says as soon as I hit that, you're going to kick in another $1 million and it all happens automatically. If I don't need the lawyers, et cetera, I still need like a really good computer programmer, don't I?
Well, it's not that complicated, but if I were a young person, I would certainly not go to law school. I would learn the Ethereum language called Solidity, because that's the future. And so, you're going to have a
mind blowing. I mean, think that. But you want the law school background so that you know how to write the law into the code, maybe.
Sure, absolutely.
Maybe law schools need to be teaching the Ethereum language too.
That's right. But the Ethereum language is far more simple than learning 1,000 or 40,000 rules and regulations out there and how to apply them and going to a court and drafting the contracts. Ethereum is much more simple than that. And that's why it's threatening to lawyers and bankers. By the way, I am a lawyer. I am a banker. When Ethereum was invented and I found out the power of Ethereum, I immediately co-founded an Ethereum company that did very well, ended up selling it. I basically abandoned my industries as lawyers and bankers because I know that in the future, these industries are going to be severely disrupted by Ethereum.
Amazing, amazing. Is there a hard wallet for Ethereum like there is Bitcoin?
There is, absolutely. You could use a ledger. These are ledgers. You just program it you just plug it to your laptop. In fact, you can carry
wait. Hold that up again. Let me see if I can get a full shot here. Wow. So what is that? That's the ledger.
Ledger, basically it's like a cold wallet. You plug it into your laptop, so USB-C, the same connection you use for an iPhone, and you could store all your crypto in here, all your Bitcoin. You could even store billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin or Ethereum on a ledger without the need of a bank or a lawyer or what have you. And you could have it all in here, and you have what's called basically a password, these special passwords to access it. Mm-hmm. And once you access it on your laptop, you could transfer value, whether it's Ethereum or Bitcoin, to another cold wallet. And that's very threatening for banks because I'm basically moving value from one person to the other without banks. And that's the power of this technology.
The FDIC doesn't like this. The, banking committees, I don't know, some of them seem like they're coming around, right? We got a new head of the SEC and we've got Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. So there's people there that I think, and obviously Trump is president, there are people in charge now that are going to represent a very different viewpoint when it comes to all this.
They're embracing technology. There was a time before cars were invented, there was a huge industry about horse chariots and horse carriages.
Yeah.
Imagine that industry was threatened when the Model T Ford was invented. And I mean, imagine a country we were living in where they were just against the car industry because they were trying to save the horse chariot industry. That was basically what was going on with the Biden administration.
Well, and it feels like that's what was going on with, the fact that you couldn't get a bank account, for example. And that your colleagues couldn't get bank accounts, and that this was just such a miserable, force to run into in terms of the regulation. I think back to the day, 12 years ago, and Russ Ulbricht, right, was Silk Road, and the FBI, I think they put him away for life, right, and it's expected he'll get out now. And Charlie Shrem's another guy
Well, it's not that complicated, but if I were a young person. Well, it's not that complicated, but if I were a young person, I would certainly not go to law school.
All right, we're having a little bit of a technical issue there, but I want to thank Sam Tabar. We will put the entire interview up for all of you to see, because we talked a little bit more there about some of the challenges that the crypto community has faced vis-a-vis Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, et cetera. But we're just at the beginning of so much, and there's so much that can happen because we have a team in place, thank goodness, right? Finally, that actually believes in the future. And so what could that look like? I don't want to wonk out too much on you guys, but I find this stuff so cool. And I know not everybody does, right? So we'll put it on a Bitcoin playlist for you on the Trish Regan channel. And I encourage you to go back. I think there's another 5 minutes left in that interview, and I want you to hear it all because it's really, really, really cool. And what he's trying to do is sort of mimic what MicroStrategy does with Bitcoin. They've effectively become a treasury holding for Bitcoin, and he's trying to do that with Ethereum. It's really neat. Look, again, just to remind you, we told you about this over at 76 Research, 76research.com, my financial research company that I founded with Rob Horton. You can go to 76research.com. There's 3 different model portfolios that we have right now. You can get them all if you become one of the founding members. You can join Founders Club, get all the portfolios. You can subscribe to one of the portfolios. You can subscribe to the 76 report itself, which is just $1 a month for the first 2 months. Then it goes to $9.95. Anyway, you can see that we are pretty significantly beating the average. This is for the 3 months ending actually at the end of October, which now it's gotten even better, right? Because of everything that's happened since the election. If you just want to go get the free stuff, listen, we have a tremendous guide. We also have a bunch on Bitcoin, a bunch on Ethereum. We have the 76 Research Invest in MAGA guide, which is investinmaga.com. So I encourage you guys to go over there and take a look at that. This is all just, look, I think that we're in the beginning of something that's going to be pretty tremendous. And granted, the market's been on a tear. Bitcoin has been on a tear. And so you have to be thoughtful about sort of the appreciation we've seen thus far. But we get into all of that. So I encourage you, again, investinmaga.com. Another one of our favorites, of course, even at 76 Research, is gold, because it's just one of those things. In fact, in fairness, I'll tell you, I bought a little bit more for my own portfolio today. I do like gold as one of those sort of hedges in my portfolio to hedge against Armageddon, God forbid. I would encourage you to call one of our show sponsors. That's the folks over at American Heart for Gold, because you can get up to $15,000 off. Well, actually, just $15,000 of free silver. What am I saying? $15,000 of free silver with qualifying offers for new customers there at American Heart for Gold. You can go to trishlovesgold.com, trishlovesgold.com, or text Trish to 6 5532. So all really, really, really great stuff. It's so wonderful to have you here today. Billy Lynn, I appreciate the kind comments. I'm looking at them here in real time, and they are so appreciated. And thank you all for being here every day, day in and day out. I mean, look, we are on the front lines of history, and there's so much more to come, and I'm so excited. I think it's the most optimistic I've ever really been about our future as a country. So I think there's a lot to celebrate. It's good to see you. Ian, welcome back. Of course, Mike Costa, good to see you. Billy Lynn, thank you for the comments. Thank you for the compliments. And David, oh, you're too funny. A bobblehead. I was going to say, hey, just check out the shop with the Live Free or Die cups. I don't know about the bobblehead, but you guys are terrific. Thank you so much. And we will be here live again tomorrow. Make sure to subscribe so you know when I'm live, and I'll see you then.